Hey everyone, it's Teresa Marzoff here with Culture Engineered, and I want to start off today by asking a question that I honestly feel a lot of leaders don't even want to entertain or think about, but it's really important. And that question is, how would your company be different if you and your management team were having performance discussions ongoing? Not just one, not just when it's really bad, but like actually had an ongoing approach, consistent approach to performance management. Think about that. I mean, what would your sales look like? What would your expenses look like? Probably a lot less turnover because hopefully you're kind of catching behaviors and issues when they're early, right? What would your sleep be like? Would you sleep better? Because I know that's really stressful. And there was a 2019 survey that even showed a report rather that by DDI, they even talked about senior leaders have identified their management team's number one weakness in their company is performance management, having difficult discussions around performance, consistency. And that's a really big deal because really companies can't get better until employees work better. That's just how it is, right? You can manage your expenses, you can do all these things, but unless employees are working better, nothing happens. The company will not perform better. So it's really, really critical that we start addressing this issue. And given the chaos that happened with COVID, this issue is just worse because obviously it was a massive disruption to our businesses in a variety of ways. And some managers are struggling with how to write this, like how to get us back on track. So today we're talking about how to, kind of regroup, how to get your team back on track. And I'm going to go over 5 steps to really regroup your team, get them back on track for the rest of the year in 2021 from a performance standpoint, and give you a healthy, clean slate to move forward. So let's get started. So step number 1 is to learn how the employee feels about his or her performance for the year. So most likely they had to shift to a remote role in March. Maybe that was already part of the role, but something likely changed. Their kids started, were out of school and had to be home. Call volumes increased or decreased. They didn't have availability of resources they did before, just stress in general. Maybe there wasn't really a lot of change to the actual like process and structure of their work, but just societal things impacted how they worked. Numbers for the company, maybe you had to do some layoffs. There can be a lot of things that happen. So it's really important rather than, just kind of letting those previous goals, if you created those with your team, just letting those sit out there and kind of loom, and creep into, our little minds as, we go about our day in employees' minds. It's creepy. So addressing, hey, let's talk about, obviously this year was an unprecedented year. It's a new normal, whatever, terminology you want to use, but really talk through what does that mean? How do you feel you did? And what do you want to do moving forward? And you'll have to be careful on that second part because likely they underperformed. We saw a lot of high performers perform poorly this year because working from home, working in new conditions is not something that high performers respond to well all the time. So we've definitely seen maybe some unpredicted shifts in how people responded to the unpredictability that 2020 brought. So when you say things like, what do you want to do moving forward, fall to someone who knows that maybe they didn't perform as well in the year, that can have some negative connotations. So be really careful to not imply get better or get out, because that's really not going to benefit you here. So really looking to understand, the goal of these conversations is to understand 2 things. 1, what the employee thinks their job is about, how it contributes to the company. So most of us don't go into our day and just like look to take down a company. Like, I'm gonna suck today and I'm gonna take 8 hours to do it, or 8+ hours. They attempt to do something, great, with a lot of their time and energy spent. So understand the mindset that they're going into their work with. That's really the number one goal of these conversations. The number two goal is learning, this is a bit of a collaboration here. So they're giving a lot of their time and energy to this role. What do they need in return? And this is going to feel uncomfortable for a lot of people, because sometimes it's money and sometimes you don't have it to give. So we'll get there. But nonetheless, it's important that they at least say it. A lot of people, that's not even it. Maybe they want more time with their kids. They want more vacation. They want better benefits. They just want to move into a different role. Whatever it is, it needs to be said so that you know. Don't just force people to give you answers you want. This needs to be, for it to be effective, an open conversation. You don't have to have a response ready. This is just to learn. So step one. Step two is so you leave that conversation, look for available data and trends. So now they've told you what they do well, you gotta make sure, right? So go and look to see how they performed in comparison to others, or just compared to how they normally perform. So if they are, project oriented, how did they do from a satisfaction standpoint? Were your customers happy? Did they achieve more projects this year than not? A lot of companies saw improvement in productivity. So look to see what data is out there to identify how well they performed, both on a quality and quantity scale, and get that information together to get a more objective view. Sadly, a lot of us do this "what have you done for me lately" approach, and that's not effective. So looking at the year as a whole and how it related to things going on in your business and in society. Really important. So step three then is determine what you believe are reasonable expectations for now and moving forward. So I think, again, if you had 2020 expectations for this employee or your team, and they were way off, as that is the case for many of us, acknowledge that. What's acceptable? Why did one person do great and the other didn't? And give some consideration to other things going on. When people start working from their homes, it's a very different experience. So just simply saying, well, so-and-so mastered it and you didn't. Me, for example, I don't have children. It's very different for me versus someone that does, given what happened this year. It was unpredicted, or it was not predicted. So really giving some consideration to what is a reasonable expectation for your business, what this person has going on, and what they're capable of. So step number, and moving forward. So now we're moving into, if you're talking about the rest of 2020, we're going into October. For some businesses, this is a really critical time, and even a good time to start thinking about 2021 itself. So, really looking what is good for right now and what is good for moving forward from an expectation standpoint. And then step number 4 is discuss these drafted expectations with the employee and set a follow-up meeting for their feedback. So what you do not want to do, it is natural for good performers to get worried when people start laying down expectations. Not because they want to slack off, but because they want to do a good job, right? A slacker doesn't care what your expectations are. They're not going to achieve them. So it's fine by them. Whatever you expect, it ain't going to happen. So instead, say, hey, I want to run these by you and see what you think. I don't want you to feel you have to respond right away, but I'm going to set a time where we can meet and just talk through any concerns or thoughts you have more thoroughly. And set that expectation of the conversation in the beginning. Don't just later say it when they start, getting worked up, because that's a natural response. Instead, or when they shut down, another natural response. Instead, let them know these are some things I'm thinking, and I want to know your thoughts about it. Again, you'll also want to align those expectations and goals to something they care about, how this will help them get more time, unload some of their workload, prepare for a new role, potential for you to, advocate for them to get more money or a commission structure, whatever that is. So be prepared to, they didn't just tell you that for nothing. Be prepared to talk through what they want out of, work and what you need in order for your team and business to be successful. And set that time. I'd say maybe like a week. I wouldn't let it go too long. So a couple days to a week, set a time where you both can then come together and encourage them to, express any concerns and share those with you so you guys can collaborate on those goals. That's not saying they get to, simply, redline whatever they feel like doing. That's not what I'm saying. Instead, I'm saying you want them to be bought in. And a lot of times employees have concerns that are valid. So keeping that in mind, you definitely want to encourage them to express those concerns so that they're not just telling you what you want to hear and you don't get anything from that. They're already checked out. So get their buy-in, set up the follow-up time a week later. So step 5 then is have that follow-up time. Now you're sitting down, now you're talking through their concerns and really listening. Maybe they expressed some of those to you before in your conversation or since you last met. That's fine, but really talk through those and make sure you're addressing those. They need to trust you here. I think we've all had expectation conversations with a boss that we know is just going to be like, oh, well, figure it out, suck it up. So that's not what this is. They need to know, okay, well, we really need to see this from this position or from you in order for us to have a successful year or month or whatever it might be. So if it's something that I can help with, what are your concerns around this? Is there training opportunity? Could they use some help from maybe another department, cross-functional team? Is there someone else that can take off another project that they're working on so that they can work in this special expertise type role that you need them to do, be effective? These are some things, some solutions that you can offer up because again, you care about this and they are saying, I care about it, but I don't know how I can do it without XYZ. So for XYZ, if you care about it. If they simply are dismissive and say, no way, I'm not doing that, that's dumb, or blah, 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 obviously a different discussion. Go ahead and check on my video on some behavioral problems. This is not for the purpose of simply, letting people, write their own path when they really just don't want to do anything different. They just want to do where they're comfortable and they don't really want to deviate from that in a way that moves the business forward, and express that. This is critical for us to have a successful business moving forward. So I appreciate that you want to continue just doing the role as you always have, but this is really important for us to ensure that we keep jobs. I'll give you one example. I worked with a news station and TV has changed. We had to have very similar conversations around this issue because you can't report on the news like you used to. It's a very different job today for multiple reasons, but primarily the money isn't there the way it used to be, and people experience news very differently. So we had to express that and really get people on board with this new approach to journalism, which is a tough message. Be compassionate here. So step 5 again is review those, really work through any of those concerns. You can even make a follow-up visit if there's something that you guys aren't able to solve in that conversation, and hold to it. And really the goal here is to come to a cohesive plan where you guys can collaborate on getting what matters most for your team and business done. And of course, helping this person to move forward in a way that they want to, whatever that means for them personally. So we do have a leadership series on performance starting on October 7th. This continues to be one of the most challenging parts of leadership, especially for new leaders. There's really no safe way to try out performance management. So if you need additional help on October 7th, we will be meeting weekly to discuss and work through this exact process. But in those sessions, managers of different industries, different experience will come together. We'll work through coaching on techniques that tend to be most effective, and then also allow for individuals in those sessions to get the work done. This isn't simply training and listening. Instead, this is actually, we are doing it together. So people walk away from this 10-week series with reviews for every direct report, ability to navigate difficult performance discussions, goals for whatever period of time you and your organization need to create goals for both employees and teams. So reach out to Culture Engineered if that's something that it could benefit you. Otherwise, hopefully you found this helpful. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.